So hello, today I'm at St John the Evangelist Church in Ford End in Essex, and I'd like to talk to you about the history of the church and the village itself. So Ford End is a village in Essex. It's 5 miles from Great Dunmow and it's 8 miles from Chelmsford City. The village is surrounded by Essex farmland. The elevation here is 70 metres or 230 feet in old money, and around 700 people live here in 2020. Now Ford End sits on either side of today's B1008, which we're looking at now. There's a road between Chelmsford and Great Dunmow. This is on an ancient Roman road. It was used from at least AD 54. Now it's possible that a small settlement was here from 400 years of Roman occupation. The present village layout also follows a Saxon layout, but to my understanding no evidence so far has been found. Now the nearest settlement in 1066 was called Lawn Hall. It's just over a mile away. Now Forkill was the thane here. His name meant thunder and the old Norse word for kettle. So Forkill was likely from a Saxon or Viking stock. We know that during his time 45 sheep, 19 pigs and 5 cattle trod these lands. Now in 1086 everything would change. The Norman Ralph, son of Turold, would become the lord here, and he would own 26 manors across Essex and Kent. The pigs and the sheep would more than double in number. But only 5 smallholders and 1 villager and 2 slaves would live here, making Lawn Hall a very small settlement indeed. Now Ford End did have a very powerful tenant-in-chief, Bishop Odo Bayo, half-brother of William the Conqueror himself. Now Bishop Bayo went into battle yielding a club, as the Bible said not to live by the sword. After the conquest, Bishop Odo would own 575 manors. When William was out of the country, he virtually ruled the land. Academics believe that Odo commissioned the Bayo tapestry. And if you look, you will see him wielding a club. Now the earliest known surviving buildings in Ford End are 2 cottages which are thatched from the 15th century. Now by 1773 the village here was known as Forth End. Now from 1940 the GCHQ line was built, defensive pillboxes made in concrete to ward off possible German attacks. And here we have a walking route so you can trace the line of pillboxes. So let's just see for fun if we can find some. So we're starting off here, and the pillboxes are here and here, and there's several more. I've just come across this shelter which somebody's made, and I wonder how our ancestors may have lived, possibly like this, with such a shelter. Anyway, let's carry on. Well, I guess I found the River Chelmer. Well, don't take me as a tour guide for sure. I've found a bombed out version. Well, I'm not the smartest cookie, but I've got there in the end. I asked a local who was walking his dogs, and I've come in from just down there, and if I pan around, I actually saw the sign, that's what caught me to this direction. So it gives a description of it here, pictorial. And let's go and have a little look inside. So I'm going to brave the stingers. Yep, shorts are on again. Ouch. Let's go through the entrance. So you can see it's a well designed piece of kit. It's where we just come in. So they've got every angle covered. They've lined it with corrugated stuff. So you can see whatever compass bearing there is, a sort of arc of fire they could put down on the enemy. And then they've got this brick central column, which I guess is new, but some of these were designed for deflecting blast fire coming in. Let's go back out. And it's set on the river as well. So if we just go over here, yeah, so the river sort of meanders around it as well, so it's acting as a defence. Yeah, so it's different. Okay, now we're walking back towards the church area, Ford End, and you can see clearly leaves are falling, and today's at 20 degrees, very warm indeed. So we take what we can get this time of year. So after a very enjoyable walk to look at these pillboxes, I'm now at the church itself. So we're looking at St John the Evangelist Church, which was built on osier beds in 1870, on the 23rd of May to be precise. Now, an osier bed is a small, or an osier is a small tree that survives on wet and boggy ground. Now if we look just to the side of the church, we can see, I guess, what the osier bed would look like. This is a drainage ditch. So Frederick Chancellor, the famous Essex architect, designed this magnificent church, and he would lay the cornerstone in 1870. An interesting year was 1870. The first ever unofficial international football match took place between England and Scotland, equaling in a 1-1 draw. Now, Frederick Chancellor himself, he spent much of his time based around Chelmsford. He was a prolific architect, designing 570 buildings in Essex alone, mainly churches. Now, by 1888, Chancellor became the Mayor of Chelmsford. Now, St John the Evangelist Church is built in red brick. It's called English Bond. It's got limestone dressings. The Victorian design is based on a 13th century period church. Now, the steeple and tower itself is built in 2 stages. Now, on the 4 corners are 4 life-size figures of the Evangelists. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know who is who, but we've got St Matthew, St Mark, St Luke and St John. From the southeast corner, from the northeast corner, which is the dark side, if we just pan around, we can just see from the northwest corner Now we're looking at the south window. We've just got 2 cusp lights and an eagle representing St John the Evangelist himself. Now we're looking at the chancel, which would have gone here, this structure here. Now, between 1892 and 1893, the chancel and the east end of St John's Church was completely rebuilt due to serious subsidence problems. Now, an Alfred Young Nutt would be responsible, and Nutt was the youngest of 15 children, yes 15. He would become a draftsman at Windsor Castle in 1867, and he would make extensive changes to St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle itself, exactly where Queen Elizabeth II was laid to rest just recently. Now, Alfred Young Nutt would serve 3 monarchs over 40 years. He was also famous for his royal Christmas cards, which he designed himself. So I've now found the correct foundation stone. I think what I showed you before was, I don't know what it was, something to do with water, I think. A watermark. Now, between 1984 and 1985, so not so long ago, the whole east end of St John's Church was knocked down. I read that masonry was falling on the congregation within the tower area, so today we can see the outline of the chancel arch. And if we pan around, we can see the original roof line running down here. Now we're standing at the base of the original west tower doorway, I guess. So now we're standing under the actual chancel arch itself. Some interesting brickwork from the past. We pan around, we can actually see the chancel itself. You can see the steps for the high altar. That's most weird, strange. We've got the original floor tiles, the bricks pan around. And if we look up at the chancel arch, we can see exactly where it started to drop down. If you can just see here, and you can see the triangular section they've put in, so it's quite serious. Now let's enter this old church. I guess these are avenue of plane trees. Now I read that this is one of Chancellor's unusual designs in the way that the woodwork is put together. And we should have a look inside. So I'll put my cap down and we shall enter. We just pan around and we can see what the entrance looks like through the south doorway. Now we're looking at the nave itself, built in 1870. And on the south side we can see there's 5 bays built in brick. Now we're looking at the arches and circular piers and capitals, and you can see that Alfred Nutt's invented this in his circular recesses. If we look up, we can see above the arches, we can see the stone corbels holding up the roof trusses. Now we should walk down and have a look at a very interesting pulpit. Now in 1869, built before the church itself, Colonel Neville Tufnell commissioned the church's pulpit. Sorry, I do apologise, this is a lectern. It has 4 figures of St Matthew, St Mark, St Luke and St John, and they are duplicates of the 4 tower figures. It's always worth looking at the detail within a church, the work that's gone into each piece. Now I guess this is a pulpit, if we pan around. And again, great detail, and if you look here, even includes Jesus' cross and the ladder and the spear itself. And the wood carving continues to the choir stalls, I guess these are here. Now we move over just in front of the stalls. It's a magnificent holder for a candle. Look at the work that's gone into that. So this has all been commissioned by Tufnell himself. Of Great Waltham. So if we go to the top, now we should make our way down the aisle back towards the west wall, and we have the font itself. It is a circular design with overlapping bands. Now we'll look at the benches, which is an unusual design with open backed seating. Now the tower itself, during the structural problems, no bell ringing took place. Now I did find out that there were 6 bells, or are 6 bells here, by John Warner. Now John Warner and Sons were more than bell founders in Cripplegate, London. The Warner family made deep well pumps, hand pumps for pubs, taps, gutters and rain pipes, and yes, church bells, and they actually have 2,550 bells survive. Now I read that the Warners cast the original Big Ben bell for the Houses of Parliament in 1856, but it actually cracked. The Whitechapel foundry would cast Big Ben, what we have today. In 2002, bells were safe to ring once again here, said to be the lightest pearl of 6 bells in Essex. Now, I'm not sure if it's the original set or a new set were cast. Now we look at what I guess is the actual chancel of today. You can see we're inside the arch itself. Behind we have a beautiful painting. This must be Mother Mary. Jesus himself. Now if we pan around, we've got a Bevington pipe organ, and the date is unknown. Now what I can tell you is that Henry Bevington was a prolific organ builder during the Victorian era. Many of his organs ended up in Australia and South Africa. Henry himself began as a journeyman, setting up in Soho, London, and it would be his sons Henry and Martin who would continue. Over 2,000 pipe organs were made up to the 1950s. Just next to the organ itself, you can see the same design of brickwork that we found in the outside of the chancel. So over on the north wall we have some paintings. And to the other side, in the west corner, we have another painting. So also on the north wall we've got the Roll of Honour and Duty from the First World War. There's a huge amount of names on here. And there's a second roll itself. It's a huge amount of names for a small community. And if we pan around a little further, I guess these are poor unfortunate fellows that never returned. So you can see they've started by a senior rank at the top, working their way down. There's also a watercolour here, if you wish to purchase one. Now we're standing in the brick arcade, the south aisle, and I believe this was built as a memorial to the priest here, Reverend Shearly Cripps. Now the Reverend Cripps would serve here twice, a most unusual man. Ordained in Oxford, the Reverend chose to preach and care for the sick in today's Zimbabwe for almost 5 decades. His fight with church policy and government injustices made him unpopular with the establishments, but he was loved by the people there. Reverend Cripps would be the parish priest here twice at Ford End, but each time Africa and its people would draw him back. In Africa he treated patients with venereal disease, which later would make him blind. His missionary workers would assist him in long walks and dictating his missionary works on paper. His walking boots, holes repaired with flattened out bully beef tins. His beloved knackered bed was thrown out for a new one. He gave away the new bed and retrieved his favourite from the dump. All his income he gave away, and like I said, an unusual man, and a good man at that. Now read that each year a pilgrimage over in Zimbabwe takes place to his shrine around the 1st of August each year at a place called Moronda Mashunu. To the locals there he was known simply as Kambada Koto, he who went about as a poor man. Excuse my pronunciation there. So now we should go outside and walk the perimeter of the church. There's a volunteer cutting the grass. Put the old cap on. See, now the weather's turned out lovely. Now I've stopped filming outside. Got absolutely lovely grass here, I must say. Very thick. So we can see the miniature buttresses here. It's a great shame the foundations let this church down. Yeah, it's definitely one of the most modern churches that I've made a video of, because as you'll know, I'll normally stick with Norman stroke Saxon churches, but this church seemed worthy of a video. It's very therapeutic cutting the grass. So I'd like to add that St John the Evangelist is an active church within the community, and they carry out baptisms, weddings and funerals, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much.